Hello, hello. This is Mrs. Lamphere, and we're in Digital Arts 2. This is Section 1, looking at Assignment A. So we're starting in Lesson 1. They have some just kind of review things we're going to do real quick. First off, it has us grab the pencil tool, and we're going to just kind of click and drag on our paper to draw a swervy line. So if you click and hold and drag around, you kind of have your freehand drawing. So make a couple freehand lines, and then also click and release, drag, and click and release again, and that's how you get your straight line. So try a couple of those just to refresh with your pencil tool. Then we're going to grab our Bezier tool, and we're going to click, release, drag, and click again, and that allows us to draw a straight line. And then if we click and drag and adjust, we can draw a curve like so. And you can keep drawing curves by clicking and dragging. And then so if you either reach your beginning point with your tool or hit enter, and that ends the use of that tool. So draw a couple of Bezier tool lines. They can be straight or add some curve to them. Again, to just do them straight, you're just clicking and dragging. Or to add some curve, you click and drag while holding your mouse button down. And then just hit enter to end that line segment. So draw a couple lines there with your Bezier tool. Then we're going to grab our Calligraphy tool, which is this tool right here. And on the Calligraphy tool controls, choose a different calligraphy preset from the drop-down list. Okay, so first of all, just draw a couple lines. Oh, can I hardly see that? With the tool that's already selected, and then make sure you go through and kind of choose a couple different tools. You can change the width up here. Again, you can change your tool with your drop-down box. So just play with a few of those different calligraphy tools as well. And then I'm going to just delete a few of my images here so that I can have a little more space to, because we're going to make some adjustments to these objects as well. So now go ahead and select one of your freehand lines that you drew. Go up to Object, Fill, and Stroke. And if you remember, we can make some adjustments to the lines that we draw with under our Fill and Stroke tab. So we can make it a spotted line, and we can increase our width either by clicking on the arrow, or you can highlight and punch in a number and change your line that way. So apply a couple of these different strokes to your lines just to get a feel for how to make those adjustments again. So after you've drawn a couple lines with your freehand tool and your pencil tool, Bezier tool, and the calligraphy tool, go ahead and go up to File, Save As, and we're going to save this in section, we're going to make a Section 1 folder, Section 1, we're going to call this Review, and save. But we're not quite done with this yet, so now we're going to use some different tools. So I'm going to kind of shrink all this up just to give myself some more room on my drawing space. Now we're going to grab the rectangle tool, and we're going to click and drag to make a rectangle. And then, if you remember, if we hold down the control button, click and drag, we can make a perfect square. So make a rectangle and a square, holding down the control button. And then same with the ellipse tool. We're going to click and drag to draw an oval, and I have my setting up here selected. Go ahead and make sure that we have the full oval setting selected. So click and drag to draw an oval, and then you're going to hold down control, click and drag to make a perfect circle. So just like the square, with the ellipse tool we can make perfect squares and perfect circles. Then we're going to grab, using our star and polygon tool, click on the star polygon option first to make sure that's selected, and we're going to click, I have my polygon selected, and then click and drag to make a polygon shape. Then on the star tool controls change the corners field until the polygon has the number of corners you want. So you can change, if you remember, you can have, excuse me, you can adjust to the number of corners or sides you want your polygon shape to have. And then we're going to click and drag to draw another polygon. Let's get that a little more out here in the open. And draw a second polygon, click the star button to make the polygon a star. So with your polygon selected and on your star tool, click and select the star button to make a star. So now again, you can, with that tool selected, you can change the amount of corners. Let's go down to 5 so that we have a nice star look there. Now we're going to edit some of these shapes. So go back to your rectangle tool and we're going to click the square to select it. Now if you remember, we can click and drag the handles to resize and reshape our square. So you can drag the handles of your square to get it resized, and you can also, by dragging the circular handle, you can drag that down to add some curve to the corners. Using the Ellipse tool, on an ellipse, we can click and drag the square handles to resize it. So go ahead and select your Ellipse tool, then select an ellipse, and this allows you to resize the ellipse. Or we could click and drag the circle handle to make an arc segment. So you might remember we can either do a segment like in this way or this way, depending on how you're dragging that arc segment around. So keep in mind that you can use that circle handle to make an arc or a segment. And there should be a way too where, if you select this kind of pie piece option, you can make a segment that way as well. So make a segment in one of your ellipse and then go back up to File, make sure we're saving frequently. So with all of these objects made, just keep in mind, by going and grabbing your selection tool, you can select an object and hit backspace or delete to then delete or remove that object. We can also undo something we just did. So if you go and grab your pencil tool and draw a line out here, you can either hit the undo last action button, or you could bring that back by hitting the redo, or if you hit Control Z, that can undo it as well, and you can redo it, or you can go to the edit menu, undo. So there's several different ways that you can make the line unappear and reappear. So just remember that as well, a little refresher. So that's a review with some of those tools. Make sure we go ahead and save again. Now we're going to make some adjustments using adding some color and some different values to our shapes and objects. So by grabbing your selection tool, go ahead and select any object out here. Then on the object menu, if it's not already open, make sure you open your fill and stroke panel over here to the right. In the fill and stroke panel, click the Fill tab, click the flat color button, which we have selected here. And then click the RGB tab, and then click and drag the RGB sliders to change the object's color. So go ahead, you can adjust the color of your object by adjusting those sliders. You probably remember that from Digital Arts 1. Then select a different object, and under the palette, click and drag the scroll bar to find the color you like. So the palette is this one down here. So you have these color options as well to apply to your shapes. And if you're not seeing the same color options that I have available here, you can go ahead and open those. This is the Inkscape default, so you might have one of these other options selected. So go ahead and select Inkscape default, and that opens the same color palette that I have showing here. So you can either have an object selected and click and drag, and click the color you want to apply to it, or you can click and drag a color on top of an object. You're supposed to be able to. Sometimes I have issues with that, so I just kind of select the object I want to color and then select the color that I would like. And let's see, now we're going to click the View menu and go down to Swatches. So again, this is just kind of another way we can Let's move that to the side, bring this out a little bit, and drag this down to see all of my swatches available. And again, I have the Inkscape default selected so I can see this variety of colors. And in the swatches panel, click and drag the left and bottom sides of the panel to expand it. We already did that. Under the swatches panel close button, click the left pointing arrow, then click a preset palette name to select it. So that's what I just did. You can select these different color options if you want. If you know what shade you're wanting to go in, but maybe, say for instance, you want something in green, it gives us all the green values there. So you can select different color palettes to apply to your swatches. So then, after you've picked a color, you can click and either drag it out to apply it, or you can have that object selected and then click on the color that you want to apply to that. Next, we're going to add some value and gradients to our objects. So with our selection tool selected, click and select a shape. On the object menu, click the fill and stroke. So I already have that open over here to the right though. So we can minimize the swatches panel and open up our fill and stroke back up. Use the Hsl tab to change the shape's hue, saturation, and lightness. So with our Hsl tab selected, we can change let me get my arrow going here. We can change the color of our objects by adjusting those sliders as well. So again, just another way to adjust the color of your shapes. So now select a different shape, and then we're going to go and grab use our gradient tool. So again, mine's down here. I have to kind of use that select more option and choose my gradient tool. Then on the selected shape, click and drag to draw a gradient. So by clicking and dragging, it kind of follows your arrow to make a gradient on that object. On the gradient line, double click the middle of the line to add a stop. So if you remember, we can add different stops along this line. And then if I select that middle stop that I just added, I can select, then I can add a different color to it. And it adds the color to that middle stop that is selected. So add a stop and then add a color to that stop. And then now we're going to double click the gradient line to add another new stop and choose another color for it. So after you've added one stop, go ahead and add another stop and just kind of mess with that to refresh yourself on the gradient tool. Now we're going to go and mess with our box tool. You probably remember this tool from the assignment when we were working with perspective. So go ahead and draw a 3D box with your box tool, and then remember with these handles we can click and drag to adjust the shape of the box we created. So you can adjust handles. These are the vanishing point handles that we can use. There's handles along the edges, the corners of the box. So adjust the handles until you get what you like. Then under Path, go to Object to Path and select your Nodes tool. And you probably remember this is where we were able to then adjust our boxes using our Nodes tool. So you can add arch to it. You could drag out those corners. So just kind of mess with that a little bit, and just to kind of refresh yourself with the box tool and the Nodes tool. And lastly, we're going to mess with our filters and add some texture to our objects. So under, once you select an object, we're going to go up to Filters, and under ABCs you can select a few different filters, try them out, and just to kind of see the difference that they make to the different shapes. So apply a different filter to at least 3 different shapes. That looks good for me. And then once you're kind of familiar again with all those tools, go ahead and hit File, Save, and that was just a quick review of the different tools that we used in Digital Arts 1. So once you feel comfortable with these tools, go ahead and save that file, and that is the first part of our assignment 1A.